Here.
Look at me when you're talking to me!
You're listening to The Rob Dibble Show.
All right, let's talk NFL coach. Because I love it's not just the carousel, it's the stuff that now Mike Tomlin's talking about. I know there's going to be changes. I might be one of them.
Well,
but I will accept my fate.
I think it's a very good ploy to tell the world, like, don't try to trade for me. I'm here.
Right.
I'm here. Like, I think McCarthy should have done that. Or not McCarthy, because I guess he did get offered.
Well, no, they
fired.
asked if they could talk to McCarthy, and they were denied. And then a couple days later, he was fired.
And
I don't
today
get that.
gets to meet with them anyway, so that was a moot point. But I just love how Tomlin's like, listen. You know, everyone is thinking,
it's a preemptive thing.
right, exactly, because he knows, and everyone else in Pittsburgh is, you know, getting a little tired of 10-8. Or 10-7.
Right.
9-8.
You know, he's always finishing over 500. Right. Okay, but he's always getting knocked out in the first round of the playoffs.
Fifth straight time this year. Fifth straight time knocked out of the playoffs. And, you know, for a guy that's under pressure, I just love the move to come out there and, like, listen, I know they all want me fired. Watch this. Hey, guys, I'm not going to accept any trades and stop that talk right now because I'm here in Pittsburgh. I'm here with you, and you can count on that.
I'm sorry.
Wait, we were going to ask if you thought you were going to get fired. So don't think about trading for Tomlin, you Cowboys fans. However, Cowboys are interviewing Robert Saleh today. Ooh, former Jets head coach, defensive mastermind, and one of the best bald heads in all of sports.
I didn't mind him as the Jets coach. I thought he got a raw deal. I think a couple of these guys have gotten raw deal. 2 years is nothing, or 3 years is nothing in the NFL, like changing talent world. You've got some of the old guys crap. You got some of the old GM stuff that's still here. You know, it's like trying to flesh out some of the old stuff. And so, listen, if you give that guy a 5-year deal, I would have no problem. The thing is, I want a younger, more passionate, disciplined guy. At the end there with McCarthy, these guys were becoming a little bit raggedy around the edges and doing their own thing. Whenever, and it's not about losing your voice in the locker room. It's about knowing what's happening and what your role is on the club to, well, you know what, I'm not getting enough targets, or I'm not getting enough handoffs or whatever. So then now that's the dissension that's a cancer that you don't need.
Right. So
you got to have someone that, listen, we're all focused on the same page. You know, that we need some unselfishness here. You can't have, well, you know, there's 3 or 4 guys making all the money and the rest of you, 40 2 extra other guys, you guys got to, pull your weight too, even though you're not making nearly what these other guys are making, these superstars that get all the credit. That, again, you got to get everybody on the same page. So when you look at like the Lions or the Chiefs or some of these other, you don't hear that dissension. You don't hear the negativity, and that's what you need, a head coach that's going to be more positive.
And he's a defensive guy. This is a little bit different than what the Dallas Cowboys have done in the last decade.
It sickened me seeing that man holding up the card in front of his face all the time, calling plays and calling bad plays. When you had Kellen Moore there, at least I could blame Kellen Moore. When Mike McCarthy's the head guy and he's the OC, then I'm like, this sucks.
This is an element of the Cowboys that isn't really discussed. Everybody talks about the playoff mishaps. Dak Prescott, is he worth this money? The running back stuff. And everybody forgets about the defense, and they think, like, Michael Parsons is great. That'll take care of itself. Diggs will get 17 picks this year. That'll take care of itself. Look at their defensive output this year. Yeah, they made some plays, and they had some interceptions. They had turned the ball over, but they gave up a lot of points to some chumps, some chump teams. If they were going to win football games, they were going to rely on their offense to try to outscore the other team and not rely on the defense to try to shut them down.
Second to last in points against
in
the NFL.
Did not know that. That sounds like
31st. They were terrible.
Sounds like Robert Saleh could have a really good interview because he could point these things out. Yep. And that's the one thing I don't think a lot of people fight, is that Robert Saleh knows what the hell he's doing on the defensive side of the football.
And they were 27th in rushing yardage. So their running sucks and their defense sucks worse. And so, so you come in there and you're like, well, okay, we need a running back. Dowdle was great, but he wasn't good enough. And yeah, so in 17 games, the guy rushed for 1,000 yards ain't what it used to be. It should be closer to 1,500 yards if you're going to be a really good running offense. And, if you're great like the Eagles, one of your guys might rush for 2,000 yards in 17 chances.
I just think they need to get back to some blue-collar football, man. Stop worrying about all the window dressing and start worrying about the meat and the potatoes. The offense and defensive lines, the big boys up front, and just stopping the run and running the football, like the basics of winning games in the NFL. It's different in college, man. If and I think Ben Johnson's a hell of an offensive coordinator. I think a lot of these guys know what the hell they're doing when they draw up plays, but so much has got to do with attitude more than just what you're drawing up there and throwing out there, and talent. Like if you can develop the culture like exists in Detroit with what Campbell has brought to Campbell's not an offensive guru. Campbell's not a defensive guru. Campbell is an attitude guru.
Right.
And that's something that, like, you're talking about, dissension in a locker room, and you're pointing out running backs that want more money or wide receivers that want Dallas invented that. That Dallas started that.
Yep.
Diva wide receiver started in Dallas. So, and that's because of the coaches that they've had. I mean, it goes back.
I would say the Steelers had Lynn Swann, but I'll take Drew Pearson.
Yeah.
He's kind of a diva.
But it's just they need an attitude adjustment down there in Dallas.
I would say Tony Dorsett was the first diva running back. I think he started being the diva stuff.
Kind of worth it, though.
But to your point, listen.
Very worth it.
As a head coach, he sets the tone.
Right.
And let's just let me attribute it to baseball locker rooms. The guy walks through that door every day, and he's going to chat with everybody. The reason I love Lou not only talked to the team, he individually would go man to man to man during batting practice. So he had like an hour and a half. I can go see my 25-man roster. Football's a little bit deeper. It's twice of that, right? So you got 46 that are on, suited up. You got 53 on the roster. You've got guys in the practice squad. He's got a little bit. So yeah, he needs more coaches and more branches to kind of send out there and get a feel for how's my team? What's the temperature today? And you play once a week. So it's a little bit different. I've got to get these guys ready for that 60 minutes once a week. There's a lot more riding on those 17 games than when you play like a baseball schedule, a basketball schedule, et cetera. So he's got to make sure mentally, which I truly believe mentally is in the highest levels is 95% of the game. That's why the NBA is suffering right now. These guys are not into it. They're probably 70% into doing what they're supposed to be doing professionally.
They need an attitude guru.
They need an attitude guru, right? So that's why, and even before I retired 30 years ago or 25 years ago, whatever, you got sports psychologists in there. So now everybody could have a marriage problem, could have a confidence problem or whatever, they can go talk to the doctor, and then the head coach, he's got a better idea of you. And even now, I think it's even more. I think today's athletes, you need more hands-on approach to, how are you feeling today? Are you in a good place today? What do you like today? How can I coach? So it's there. I remember talking to Bruce Bochy 20 years ago, 15 years ago. He's like, listen, dude, I've got to motivate each player individually. Where we walk through paranoid about losing our jobs, these guys, they've got a different attitude now. It's how to get them laser focused. And so whoever you bring in and the staff he brings in around them, that is the biggest problem, is getting these guys mentally to want to walk through that door ready to work every day.
Is Pete Carroll too old for this? Can he do those
I would
things?
say no, as long as his support staff are good people. You have to bring in people. And listen, I kind of like the CEOs or the head coaches. I kind of look at them as a CEO that says, I need people that are smarter than me that surround me. And that's the way it is. You have to bring in the people that are, because listen, if you're the head coach and I'm the player, I'm not going to you with my problems. If I'm a defensive player, if I'm an offensive player, if I'm a special teams guy, I'm going directly in the chain of command to my guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to trust him. So even let's say when I was playing, I didn't go to Pete or Lou. I went to Stan Williams, my pitching coach, or Larry Rothschild, my pitching coach. I went to those people.
Yep.
Or I went to my older teammates that had 15 years of tenure on how did you do this? How have you stuck around for so long? Those were the people I was going to connect with. And so as long as Pete Carroll brings in people that these other guys can connect with, if eventually, let's say in 3 years, 4 years, Pete Carroll is gone, this other person gets a interim label and then the head coaching job, that guy has been the bridge. The problem for the bridge guys, and this is the way you look at Gerard Mayo, is that he was too close to some guys, not close enough to other guys, and he could never get them all on the same page, and you only gave him 1 year to do it, which I think sucks. I think that's awful. They treated that guy poorly. But again, when you're still in the organization and you go to the head job, I think sometimes it's better to go outside, bring somebody in, bring in new people, and allow that coach to bring in. Here's the problem I see in a lot of other sports. We keep old parts, old coaches. And we say, that guy's never going to be, on the same page as the head coach unless they've been boys forever. And you see that everywhere. Like even I'll bring up Terry Francona with the Reds. Terry Francona quickly brought in all of the people he can trust. Guys that aren't going to backstab him for his job, guys that are here to win and win championships, and that's what Terry Francona was brought in to do. So whoever comes into the Cowboys, if Pete Carroll comes back to another organization, he's got to be surrounded by people he can trust and that aren't going to run up to management and backstab him.
So New England set. We got Mike Vrabel sitting in the head chair already there. The other 5 teams still looking for a head guy. New York Jets, Dallas Cowboys, Chicago Bears seem like they've interviewed every single candidate. I mean, they've got about 35 candidates. Las Vegas Raiders and the New Orleans Saints. What's the best job out of those 5? What one would you want?
I heard what you said before, and I absolutely agree 100%. They're all great jobs.
Yeah.
There's only 32. There's only 6 openings or 5 openings. Any one of them is a great one. Now, if I have my choices, who can win the quickest? That's a tough one.
You never know in this league,
yeah.
man. You never know in this league.
Everyone I start with the best QB. Who's the best QB out there?
So, Jets question mark. Dallas Dak. Caleb in Chicago. Las Vegas question mark. New Orleans Derek Carr. I'm going to say Caleb Williams.
I'd say the Bears. I actually thought the Bears were I watched them in Hard Knocks. I watched the way they handled their business when they were doing their stuff. I'm kind of blown away how poorly they played this year.
They lost that Thanksgiving game that got Eberflus fired.
Yep.
They lost the Hail Mary game from Washington Commanders, and they lost a bunch of other handful of games in one possession. They were very close in a lot of their games, and sometimes a coaching move here or there could have won them some of those.
I think not having Hard Knocks next year will help them. Yeah. I think that, a year experience for Caleb is going to help. But listen, Chicago, man, Dallas is a great gig. But listen, for me, L.A., Chicago, New York, for me, are great gigs.
Chicago has a little bit of the Dallas problem in a different way. Like, their ownership is so far removed. So far removed.
Is Mrs. McCaskey, who's 105, still the owner?
She's still hanging out there, man. Her and the dog, and then they got the son that's kind of working as the owner
they're playing
right
against
now.
Vince Lombardi's team.
So there's a lot of to get things done in Chicago isn't as simple as it is other places because there's a lot of different chains of command to go through.
Let me say this: you go to Dallas, you got Jerry problems. You're always going to have Jerry problems.
You're going to have Jerry
problems. So depending on where you go, if I'm sitting there and I've got my pick of the litter kind of deal, I'm also saying who's going to be the most favorable owner and GM for me.
I like this Tom Brady Chucky combination that we got going on in Vegas. I feel like the coach is going to
He's allowing Tom Brady to do business.
And I think that's pretty smart. I mean, who are you going to trust, Mr. Davis or Mr. Brady on football decisions?
Tommy.
I think I'm going to go with the Hall of Fame quarterback on that one.
Because he's putting his money where his mouth is.
And I think that the purse strings, as far as that goes, if Tom Brady needs it and knows that this is what's needed to win a championship, he will talk Davis into opening up.
I've listened to some of Tom Brady's motivational speeches and stuff like that. This guy's got a huge chip on his shoulder. He has gone 20, 25 years of people not believing in him, and he's about making you wrong. And that's a good place to start with this guy. He's motivated to win and win championships. So he's not going to come in and do a half-ass deal. He doesn't need the money. He's got enough money. He could stick with Fox and make his $350 million and not even touch what he made as a player. He's now going to a place where he's like, I could stay in football. I could be a part of the football thing. If I keep my analyst job, I'm still getting paid to do that, and I've got the best of both worlds, and I've got an owner that's allowing me to help. I mean, listen, I think that'd be a good thing. Plus, it's a gorgeous stadium. You're in Vegas. There's a lot of upside to that.
You can run that town. If you're the head coach of a Raiders football team that's like positive winning record, everybody showing up, not just for the experience of that stadium, experience of Vegas, but the experience of watching the Raiders kick the crap out of somebody, that head coach is going to run that town.
But that's why I think Deion's not leaving Boulder. Deion owns Boulder, Colorado, and Colorado as a whole.
The whole state. Yeah.
The whole state.
Yeah.
So, and all the alumni. So they're all in on Deion. So it's not, why would I give that up when I just built that? So for Vegas, I mean, you're always going to have Jerry's World, and that's an issue for me. I'd rather come and do the Jets. I'd rather be in New York and do something that nobody thought I could do.
Here are the Raiders candidates so far. Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson. Aaron Glenn, the Cardinals, D.C., right? And then Ben Johnson, the OC from the Detroit. We talked about Steve Spagnuolo yesterday. Yeah. He's on the interview list to be once the Kansas City Chiefs either get bounced or win the Super Bowl. Todd Monken, we talked about him yesterday. Robert Saleh also on the list. Van Joseph and Pete Carroll just interviewed there today.
I like them all. I mean, it's a question of, like I said, who do they bring in with them? Bring in some good OCDCs and guys that can motivate these dudes in the practice room and the video. That's another thing. I think with today's technology, you need somebody that is the best technology wizards, that when these guys are sitting in a video room watching stuff, they don't get bored. I think that's moving forward. I think technology is just like we've been talking to Jim Moore Jr. and everybody about leaving your cell phones outside and stuff like that. These guys were raised on technology. They want all the bells and whistles. So if you've got kind of an old world guy that's not into the new world technology, I think you're going to lose some of these younger players coming out of college because they're not going to know, oh my God, that guy, he won a bunch of Super Bowls, my head coach. They could care less who their head coaches are and some of the coaches on the staff. They want to know, what can you do for me?
I forgot about Jacksonville. I'm sorry. Throw Jacksonville in the mix. You want that job instead?
I kind of dig it.
I would love it too.
I like Trevor Lawrence.
I would love it too. Robert Saleh, by the way, is scheduled to interview. He did yesterday morning. Sorry.
All right. First Dibs question of the day coming up next, and then Sal Palantonio at 4.
84 eastbound.